Hello, we have take two. Yep, I messed up another one. Okay, this is two different kits because these little cardboards, which are watercolor paper, were in donations and they already had the string in them and I thought they were cute, so I had to think of something to use them for. So this was my first thought. Well, when I got done with that, there were still quite a few of the little vials left over. Now these came with a pretty white, simple plastic um, stopper, but you can't get rustic from white plastic. So, these are the kits. This is, I'm calling this one the vial pendant. I don't know, it worked. And in this kit is a little piece of paper, thin, either deli paper, paper sack, parchment paper, something like that, for you to write your secret, your note, or just scribble on, make it pretend. And then it comes with a piece of copper wire, your vial with the cork, because I had to hunt till I found the right corks, because it had to have a cork. You know, and me, when I get my mind set on something, and a piece of rusted fabric. Now, some of these could be a little thicker than others, so you might be able to tear it and get two pieces for something else. And that is the pendant. Real simple. And I will show you that one first. We'll come back to this one, okay? So this one, really, really simple. I mean, it is almost crazy simple, okay? So this is, we'll pull all this back out again. So you can determine what you want to put on the inside, okay? And let's pretend I'm writing a secret save me note. Save me. Okay, that's just silly, but. And now I'm going to roll it up. And you do kind of have to roll it up a little bit tight if you want to get it in there. But you know what? We can pull it and we don't have to use the whole amount. You can use the whole amount. You can roll it tight because once you roll it up a little bit, you can still tighten it up. And we're going to stick it in our vial. And I didn't do a real good job, but that's not the concept really. That's kind of our little secret. Could be your little prayer, whatever. So we're going to take the cork. And I've just got a plain old pokey tool, an awl. And mine is Well Loved, but this is a jewelry awl. They don't make it, it doesn't make a difference. They all do the same thing. So I'm going to go straight into the center of this. And I'm just going to poke it in just a little bit so you can see that I'm in the center. And I am going to just poke it down. And if you notice, I'm just using one hand. It did go crooked. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit, all the way. I'm going to go back in, forcing it straight, or at least as straight as possible. It's pretty centered. It's not quite, but almost. So I'm just going to make that hole. Going to take the piece of wire that you have in your kit, and I am just making this right out of this kit, aren't I? Uh-oh. Okay, so I was going to do it on my own little vials, but that's okay. I can replace this. It's easy peasy. I'm going to go ahead and use this other wire I have cut. You have a piece of copper wire. I'm not sure on the gauges. Most of the gauges have been under 20 gauge, which 20 gauge would be stiffer. But like this one is 21 gauge. I know because I just went into the other room and got it. Okay, so to make this a pendant and have the loop, of course you could have just used a cup screw or an eye screw and put in here into the cork, and that would have been cool. But my experience with putting an eye screw in a cork is they don't last. They work themselves out. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a loop that's going to last. We're going to take our wire And I'm going to show you some things you can do if you don't have jewelry making tools. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to kind of coil it a little bit. And I'm not being too picky. I just am doing this a little bit like that. And I'm just going to smash it up. And now I'm going to take this other end. I know I went through there. And I'm going to go back through the cork and pull this like this. And if you want to, make it a little more flush on your loops or your mess there, that's cool too. So I have it like this. That's not going to pull out. Then you can put this back in there. If you want to be more secure, glue is fine, but you can push that in pretty good. And then you're going to make a loop. Now, depending upon what kind of cord you may want to put this on or what kind of chain, this could easily be a dangle on the outside of a treasure journal or something on the spine. It is plastic, but gluing it is fine. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to make a big difference, but that's your call. So for what we're going to do is we're going to take this wire, we're going to bend it over flat. Okay. Now we're going to put this pencil just a little bit past where the wire is and make a loop. Now you can either leave your pencil in, which is what I'm going to do, or you can take it out and pinch this loop, which is easy too. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the pencil in, and actually if it's annoying and you want to, you could take the vial off. We're not securing that in yet, and we're just going to wrap this. Then pencil comes out, and then you finish and put a couple more wraps. So I have a couple of wraps on there. You can get them as tight or as loose as you want. It's got a stopper on the end of the cork. It's not going to pull through. Push it in nice and snug. It's not going to go anywhere. Now you're going to take the rest of the wire, and you're just going to decorate it and coil it. And maybe you want to wrap it several times. It's your wire. You do what you want. Now you've got this end. You don't want to leave that. You can cut it off, but it's still going to leave kind of a pokey somewhere. So what I usually do is I usually will take something round, like my little round pokey tool, and I'm just curving that, making a little bitty spiral. Now I'll cut that end off, because now it's kind of contained in the spiral. And this wire is pretty easy to work with. I'm just going to pinch it so it's pushed down a little bit more. If it's hard on your fingers, put something on one side and your finger on the other and push down and see if that helps. But usually that'll work pretty good. If you get it on here and you've decided it needs to be a little bit tighter, you can easily take a pair of tweezers and go on the wire and give it a little twist to kind of kink it up a little bit. And then you can tie your little strip of fabric wherever it is you please, or leave it off, totally your call. If that's a good place to cover up your little spiral that you might have made so it doesn't snag on anything. And there's your little pendant. So you can have your little secret right here in its own little bottle. So that's the pendant. Okay, so now we're going to go into the next step. And we are going to get a little more fancy smancy here. So in this kit, we have the watercolor paper with the twine already on it. Now some of these had marks on them, but that's okay because we're going to make them our own. And you have a piece of rusty fabric. You have several pieces of old paper, and you have maybe one or two different little things. This is a tea bag that you could write your notes, put in the inside. I'm going to skip the note part, mostly because we have already done that. I am going to, I had a spare one of these. I'm looking. I'm looking. So I'm going to go ahead and use a plain piece of paper because this, if I use this, I'm taking away from the kids, and I don't want to do that. So we will use some paper I already have for another kit set in here. Let's go ahead and cut this down so it's about the same size. This is 4 1/4 by 6. We'll just call it 6. It's close. I don't like the way that paper is curving there. So we're going to come over here, 6, and we'll just stop right there. Okay, so we have that. So this is basically the same size, but I am not going to use the heavy watercolor paper because this way we have plenty of kits. So what I did is I took, and we're going to use this vial that we just did because, you know, it's just the same thing. We just didn't make the loop on it. We just put our paper inside and shoved our cork in there. So I'm going to take this off for now, and you figure out how you want it on there. I don't know why I went angled. I kind of do weird things like that. So we're just going to draw this. Where we're going to embed that. And we know it needs to be a little bit bigger, so we're just going to kind of, you know, give us a basic shape. Now, you can do a couple of things. You can come in with your X-Acto knife and cut it out, or you can come in with a knife or a pair of scissors and make a mark in it, because I got a good groove going there. I'm going to go ahead that way, and then we're going to take our scissors and we're going to cut out the opening. And just take your time so it's nice and halfway decent. I mean, it's a real vintage looking style, so you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think it looks like, you know, you found this secret vial on the beach of a fancy vacation and you wanted to save it forever. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Okay, so I've cut that out. I want to make sure the vial sits in there. And of course, it's not perfect. And you would take an eraser, but you know what? All my pencils have hard erasers. So rather than pause and get up and go over and get it, we're not going to. So now I'm going to take my pokey tool. And if you can see, this is wired in. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 holes. And at the top there's 2 more. So it doesn't matter how many holes, just enough to keep it to stay in there. So I'm just going to come through and poke some holes. You probably want to make sure that you have, you know, a couple 3 at the bottom that makes it harder for it to fall out. I'm trying to make it where you can see it, and then my hands keep sliding. And yes, my paper is it's a cardstock. It's not watercolor. So we're going with that, okay? So I don't know how well you can see the holes. And of course we can't get that vintage look with white paper, right? So what I did is I just stamped all over it, and I thought my ink pad was right here because I used it prior in another video, but it could be in my little pile on the side of me where things go that I don't know where they need to be put out. Okay, so I found it. So on this one, I did stamp some images, and I stamped some polka dots and words. Okay, not everybody's going to have stamps, right? So I'm going to show you something you can do if you don't have a stamp. you can give yourself some texture. Now I just picked up this bag that was in the other room when I went for supplies. Okay, it's just a plastic bag. And I'm just going to cut it down a little bit because I don't need it this big for this size. But you know what? Your kids all come in plastic bags, so you could easily just use that. So I'm just going to crumple it up and make sure that it's got wrinkles all different direction. And I'm just going to go on my ink pad with it. And then I'm just going to stamp some texture. If you're not afraid of getting your hands dirty, you can undo it, turn it a different direction. So it's going to be different print, different. So there you go. You didn't even have to use a stamp, just use the stamp pad. And you got all this beautiful texture. Okay, so you want it to really look old. Ink the edges. And I would probably use the little inking sponge or brush. But for now, I'm just going to do this. This is my original, whenever I started making cards and stuff, you know what feels like 100 years ago. This is my original way of inking things on the edges, was with the ink pad. I never even thought of a sponge or anything. So we've got that. So we've got these little papers that are in here. We pretend one of them we wrote on already and put inside. And I knew there was more in there. This is a dictionary page. If you want to, you know, ugly it up. That's not really, you don't really ugly it up. You just vintage it. And you can take what parts of it you want. You could ink it up. Make it all old and funky looking. I'm going to use this bag again, and I'm going to do that without using my little sponge. And I got pretty lucky with that one. It kind of got the edges dark and everything. And then you can just glue it down how you want, where you want. Again, no rhyme, no reason. Oh, look! I've got a brand new glue stick. Yay! That means there's 3 more in there that probably have already been opened. That's just how I roll. So I'm just going to put that on there. And easily you can just take little bits of paper and put them on the edges, cover the whole thing, stamp on it, anything you want. I just wanted to make sure you understood you didn't have to have a stamp. You could use something else. And say that you want some more liney type things. So I'm going to use my glue stick lid, and I'm just going to put a few circles here and there. So what we use on our jelly plate, we can also use on our ink pad. Because I did a video earlier and I used a fork for my weaving, it's sitting here. So I am going to put some ink on that fork and see what it does. Oh look, pretty cool. You see those cool lines? So don't panic if you don't have the stamps that look right with what you're doing. Just use something else. Okay, here's another thing. A ruler. Put some ruler on the end of that, or some ruler on the end of that. Some ink on the end of that ruler, and look, I got some more lines. I got one good line and a light line. That's pretty cool. Okay, so probably the next thing we really need to work on is, besides the mess, if you can see this, when I started it was pretty empty, and it just works its way in, and that is how I work. Before I know it, I have 10 square inches, and that's it. That's why I clean up after every project. So we're going to take the wire, and you should have plenty of wire in there. I think on the original project I probably used more wire than was needed. So you're going to take your little vial with paper in it, and I'm just going to lay this link or loop down so it's not in the way. And I'm going to use my pokey tool because it's the right small size here. And I'm just going to make a little coil, one ring, and then I'm going to bend it up straight like that. So it's kind of like giving it a head so it doesn't come through. And I'm just going to go in one of the holes. I hope you can see this well enough. Get over there. You stay where you're supposed to. And then I'm going to come over to this other side over here. I'm not going to pull it tight because I know that this is going to go in there. This will have to go in there a time or two to pull, and then it's going to have to be, you know, it's going to come in and out. That's what I'm trying to get to. So I've got that. Now granted, you will be working with a much heavier paper. It is very much easier. And then I'm just going to kind of weave back and forth to make sure that I get it and hold it in place. You don't want to pull too tight. You will pull through your paper, even the heavy stuff. And just work it, encasing this into there. Now, you don't have to do it this way. This is the way the kit is designed. This does not mean this is how it has to be done. I love seeing people change the idea and turn it into their own style, and that's what makes art so amazing, is the different styles everybody has. I'm working on flattening this on the back so it stays flat. And I may have pulled it a bit too tight. So. And I have to say that this wire is a little bit heavier than the wire that's in the kit. But it's what was close. And now I skip this hole because I want to make sure I come down here and really get this to hold in. And I'm actually going to do the same thing again. I'm going to come over here to this hole. Because you don't have to follow a pattern. You know, you just want it to stay in there. So I've got that. And I'm going to go ahead and come in here. And I'm going to come over to the very bottom one. And because I went from here to here, that's really not a whole lot of support for this. You got to pull that down. And now, because it's not, I'm going to come up here to this one over here. So you don't have to panic. You don't have to get it in the right spot. There is no right and wrong. You just want some wire to hold it in. And there is nothing saying that you can't put some wire on it. And if it doesn't want to stay, then I'll show you how to fix that too. Okay, so we've got that. And now we have, what holes do we have left open? We only have one, and it's just right here beside that. So I'm just going to go through the loops of the wire and come back here. And I'm going to go back in this hole. And if you want to, when you're done, and you know, you can leave your wire loose like that, because I'm going to show you how to tighten that all up a little bit. And I kind of like that. So I'm going to come back down here to this one more hole. And that is the last hole. And I'm going to come up here and just go through this again. And I'm just picking places. I'm not doing anything specific for any reason. I do want this to come up there like that, and then I want it to fold over like this. So now you can make a spiral, and you can use your fingers. Let me show you with a pair of scissors. I'm not squeezing real tight. I'm not wanting to cut this. I'm just wanting to hold it so it curves, and I just keep curving. And I made this really cute spiral. I'm going to pinch it with my fingers and curve it a little more to get it a little bit tighter. And now I have that cute little spiral that's going to stick up there. So you can see that a little bit better. Okay, so your wires are kind of loose and floppy. Again, you can take a pair of scissors, a pair of tweezers, or jewelry pliers, or just regular pliers, needle nose pliers. And take your, if you've got a pretty thin wire, you might not want to use scissors, because if you squeeze too hard and cut it, then you'll be angry. But just give it a little twist. And here's a little twist. And all I'm doing is putting little twists in the wire to kind of suck it up and get it tight. And I've left some coils there, and I'm going to come around to the back. You can see this big loop right here. And I'm just going to bring it and tighten that up a little bit. Now, as you can see, this one is so much heavier than this one. I want to make sure you realize that this is much heavier paper. And so that is it. You just decorate it and add what you want to it, and voila, you have your own thing. Now, I did not put this on it before I wire wrapped it, so that's my bad. But if you wanted to and you didn't want it on there, you could easily just make yourself a bow, or not. If it's not long enough and you can't make one, then just tie a little piece of it on here, or shred it into several little pieces and tie it on like that. So you've got a little added bow thing on it right here. I mean, you know, I'm doing this rough. I hope you understand. I want you to see the different ways that you can do things with what you get in your kits. But for those who don't have the kits and just want to try making this, you also know other things you can use and make it work. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's perfectly vile. Okay, so that wasn't maybe very funny, but I enjoyed it. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy your little projects, those who get these kits. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.